Welcome, chosen ones. Sometimes the main character enters the story, so late it feels like a plot twist. But in reality, it was divine suspense the entire time. For a long while, it looked like your name wasn't even in the credits. You were backstage, weighed down by sweat, setbacks, and seasons of silence, while people with half your purpose and none of your depth stood front and center, performing like their lives depended on applause. But here's the truth, the world rarely admits. Every masterpiece has a moment when the real star finally walks in. And from that moment forward, nothing stays the same. Some of the most legendary roles in cinematic history were almost handed to someone else until the right actor arrived and owned it so completely, the audience couldn't imagine anyone else in the part. That's you. Chosen one. You weren't late. You were preserved. The spotlight isn't just searching anymore, it's shaking. The stage isn't just set, it's sacred. The world isn't just watching, it's wide-eyed. You're not simply about to make an appearance. You're about to take over the entire show, costume, crowd, and critics included, and your haters. Oh, they've got front row seats. Popcorns on them. This is not just a scene, it's a shift. Not just your moment, but your divine takeover. So before we step into this prophetic unveiling, I want to pause and say thank you to everyone who has supported this journey through Super Thanks. Your generosity fuels the mission to bring messages like this to souls around the world. And I honor you for it. And to those who can't or choose not to give, know this. Your presence here is still a priceless gift. And I am deeply grateful for you. Now, I want to hear from you. If this resonates in your spirit, if you know, deep down, this is speaking your truth, type 777 the comments, so I know my chosen ones are here and ready. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that the finale doesn't start until they walk in. Buckle up because the curtain is rising. And what happens next is going to rewrite the whole story. God's chosen ones. The moment is yours. You're about to rule the entire show. Number 1. You were the plot twist they never saw coming. Chosen one. Have you ever noticed how the greatest stories are defined not by the opening scene, but by the moment no one saw coming? You are that moment. You are the scene changer they can't explain, the shift they can't control, the surprise that rewrote their entire script while they were counting you out, whispering behind closed doors, convincing each other that you were irrelevant. You were quietly becoming the one element that would turn the whole narrative upside down. They thought they were the stars. They thought they had the upper hand. But you weren't just coming back. You were arriving, and there's a difference. Coming back implies returning to an old role. Arriving means stepping into a new, elevated dimension. Can you feel it? Can you sense how heaven was writing you into a position you didn't even know you were being prepared for? While they misread your silence as surrender, your setbacks as final, your delays as defeat, God was concealing you in plain sight. Proverbs 25:26. It is the glory of God to conceal a matter. To search out a matter is the glory of kings. You were hidden on purpose, sharpened in obscurity, stripped of what you didn't need, and infused with something real, something no imitation could replicate. Think about Nelson Mandela. They locked him away for 27 years, thinking isolation would erase his influence. Instead, prison forged his authority. And when he walked out, he didn't just rejoin the conversation, he ruled it. Do you see the parallel? That's why your return is destabilizing everything they built in your absence. They grew comfortable without you. Tô confortable. But the moment you speak, move, rise, or simply walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts. Why? Because you're not here to reclaim a seat at their table. You are the table. Psalm 23, 5 declares. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You are that table. Your very existence is proof, not a plea for validation. Oprah Winfrey once said that the best revenge is massive success. She was fired from her early television job for being unfit for television. Now she owns networks, just like her. You were never part of their original plan. And that's exactly why your entrance is so disruptive. Look at Harriet Tubman. She wasn't supposed to lead hundreds to freedom, yet her courage became the central story of an entire era. That's you. The truth you carry is a wrecking ball to every lie that tried to bury you, Jesus said in John 8:32. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You are walking, breathing, undeniable truth. And remember David, the shepherd boy, no one invited to the anointing ceremony, who walked in with a slingshot and changed the destiny of a nation. That's your energy now. The curtain is up, and the world is finally seeing what heaven always knew. The real story didn't begin until you stepped on stage. So here's my question to you. If the plot now revolves around you, how will you carry this moment? Will you shrink back to make them comfortable? Or will you stand in the center, knowing God Himself wrote you into this scene? Isaiah 60:1 commands, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." Chosen one, the spotlight isn't a distraction, it's your assignment. Number 2, you were cast as the underdog, but you were the writer all along. Chosen one. They thought they had you figured out. They called you quiet, too emotional, too different. They gave you small roles, manageable scripts, and told you to stay in the background. But tell me, how can someone who was born to carry the pen settle for being a background character in a play they didn't write? They assumed your destiny was to follow, never to lead. They thought you'd remain in the shadows, clapping for their illusions while surviving on crumbs of validation. But what they didn't see was that every moment you spent silent, you were observing every mask, every ego move, every power play. You saw it all, like a director watching rehearsals. You were studying the cast, waiting for the moment to rewrite the script. Just as J.K. Rowling wrote the Harry Potter series in cafes while living on welfare, a story no one expected to dominate global culture. You were crafting something in the quiet, while they memorized lines to impress. You were learning how to carry authority without performance. Your journey was your training ground. Pain taught you depth. Betrayal taught you discernment. Loss taught you value. Silence taught you self-control. And when the shift came, it didn't ask for permission. It arrived like Maya Angelou's Rise, the poet who turned her trauma into timeless literature. You weren't competing with their show. You were becoming the entire story. They thought you were surviving background noise when, in truth, you were scripting the storm. Esther 4:14 says, "And who knows but that you have come to your royal position for such a time as this? You weren't built for the sidelines. You were created for such a time as now." Consider Steve Jobs, fired from Apple, the company he co-founded, only to return years later and transform it into one of the most powerful brands in the world. That's the same spiritual pattern. Rejection that becomes the foundation for revolution. They can't understand why the person they underestimated is now the voice that changes the atmosphere. Why the one they boxed in now holds the blueprint. Why the underdog became the architect. As Paul wrote in 1 Corinthians 1:27, God chose the foolish things of the world to shame the wise. God chose the weak things of the world to shame the strong. When you speak now, it's not noise, it's narrative. You are no longer reading their lines, you are writing your legacy. Walt Disney was once told he lacked imagination, yet his imagination built worlds. And you? Your vision is already building realms they can't yet comprehend. So, chosen one, are you ready to stop living by the script they handed you? Are you prepared to hold the pen and write chapters they'll be forced to read? Revelation 21:5 says, Behold, I am making all things new. That new includes you, your role, and the story they thought they were telling. Number 3. The spotlight is looking for you because you're the only one not chasing it. Chosen one. Have you noticed how the light seems to find you no matter where you stand? It's almost as if the universe itself is scanning the crowd, bypassing the loud performers, skipping the desperate faces, and locking onto you, the one person who isn't even trying to be seen, while others have clawed, begged, and reshaped themselves to fit into a spotlight they can't sustain. You've been doing something far more dangerous. You've been becoming. You weren't rehearsing for applause. You weren't bending your soul into shapes that would impress the crowd. You were crafting something real in the shadows, a depth that can't be replicated by hashtags or viral trends. Doesn't it make sense now why the light is hunting for you? Matthew 5:14 says, You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden. The light isn't just shining on you, it's responding to what's already inside you. Look at Keanu Reeves, a man who avoids Hollywood parties, rarely gives interviews, yet has a global following because of his quiet humility and integrity. He didn't chase the camera chased him. That's exactly your position right now. You didn't market your soul, you refined it. You didn't build a brand, you built a backbone. While the world was playing to the crowd, you treated life like sacred training. You embraced the quiet years when no one clapped, liked, or even noticed. You let the hidden seasons do their work in you. Do you realize how rare that is? Ecclesiastes 3:1 reminds us, To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. You understood that being unseen was not punishment, it was preparation. Michael Bublé was once singing in a hotel lobby for tips before being discovered. Serena Williams trained relentlessly behind the scenes long before she became a household name. Like them, you didn't need instant validation to prove your worth. You knew that when the right time came, your preparation would speak louder than your self-promotion. And now the spotlight is circling, not to inflate your ego, but because there is finally someone in the room with the strength to stand in it without crumbling. Remember Joseph, forgotten in prison for years. But when Pharaoh needed wisdom, the call came for him, not the ones flaunting themselves in the palace halls. Genesis 41:14 says, So Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. That's your story, a sudden elevation from hiddenness to visibility. The people who once ignored you are confused. They're whispering, How did you get here without begging for it, without playing the game? They can't understand that you weren't chasing followers, you were following purpose. They chased noise. You cultivated clarity. They fought for moments. You became the moment. Think of J.R.R. Tolkien. He spent years writing The Lord of the Rings in near anonymity, not knowing it would change literature forever. Or Rosa Parks, whose quiet defiance on a bus lit a fire across the world. Neither of them sought the stage. They simply stood firm in who they were. And history turned its gaze toward them. Psalm 37:6 promises. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. That's what's happening now. The spotlight isn't exposing you, it's revealing what's been hidden all along. You are not the lucky recipient of random attention. You are the city on a hill that cannot be hidden. So, are you ready to stand fully in the light you never asked for, but were born to handle? Are you prepared for the conversations that will start, the eyes that will follow, the invitations that will come? Because Luke 12:48 says, "To whom much is given, much will be required." And chosen one, the world is about to see what heaven has seen in you all along. Number 4. They overacted. You were the realest thing on set. Chosen one. Have you ever walked into a room and felt the entire energy shift without saying a single word? That's not coincidence. That's presence. While others were busy perfecting their characters, memorizing their lines, and tightening their masks, you stepped in as yourself. No filter, no facade, no artificial charm, just truth. And that's exactly why the atmosphere bent in your favor the moment you arrived. They were overacting. You were simply existing. They projected their voices, exaggerated their gestures, and wrapped themselves in the costume of confidence. You just carried the weight of authenticity. And here's the thing about the real. It always exposes the fake without trying. John 8:32 says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." You weren't trying to unmask anyone, but your presence alone did it. Think about Heath Ledger's portrayal of the Joker. Critics and fans agree his performance felt different because he wasn't just acting the role. He became it. But in your case, you're not becoming a character, you are living your truth. You're not reciting rehearsed lines, you're embodying something unshakable. And that's far more unsettling to those who survive on illusion. They kept wondering what your angle was. They looked for the script you were following, the strategy you were hiding, but there was none. You weren't chasing applause. You weren't bending yourself into a role. You were simply being, and that unnerved them. Why? Because the human mind is wired to predict patterns, and they couldn't predict you. Maya Angelou once said, "When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. They showed you their rehearsed selves. You showed them your real self." And the contrast was undeniable. Their roles were loud but hollow. Yours was quiet but solid. Proverbs 10:9 declares, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." Integrity doesn't shout, it stands. And the whole room listens. Consider the music industry. Amy Winehouse didn't fit the polished pop image of her time, but her raw voice and unapologetic authenticity cut through every pretense. Like her, you didn't need to compete for notice. Your genuineness commanded it. They created noise. You carried weight. And when weight enters the room, noise becomes background static. It's ironic, isn't it? While they strained to stand out with glittering facades, your authenticity made them fade into the shadows. You didn't have to steal the spotlight. The spotlight is naturally drawn to what's real. Psalm 15:2 describes you perfectly. The one whose walk is blameless, who does what is righteous, who speaks the truth from their heart. Now, Nelson Mandela stood in court, refusing to perform fear for his oppressors. That silent defiance carried more weight than any speech could. Similarly, You don't need theatrics. You just stand. And everything counterfeit collapses. That's why the show around you is shifting. The audience, whether they admit it or not, is tired of the act. They've had enough of the scripted smiles and calculated moves. In sports, think about Michael Jordan. His dominance wasn't about showmanship for the cameras. It was about the relentless, real work behind closed doors that made him unstoppable on the court. That's you. Your preparation in private is why you can walk into public without fear of being found out. There's nothing to find. You are exactly who you appear to be. And here's the truth that stings them most. You didn't collapse their act by attacking it. You simply existed beside it. The world's obsession with perfection and popularity is fading. The currency with the highest value now is presence, real, grounded, unshakable presence. 1 Samuel 16:7 reminds us, "The Lord does not look at the things people look at. People look at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." So, are you ready to keep standing in that truth? Even when the room full of actors gets uncomfortable, are you prepared to be the mirror that exposes what's false without even trying? Because chosen one, you didn't steal the show. The show collapsed under the weight of its own fakeness. All you did was stand there, and the truth did the rest. Number 5. Every time they tried to replace you, chosen one. Has it ever struck you how quickly they assumed you were interchangeable? As if your presence could be swapped out like a prop in a scene? As if anyone with the right look, a similar style, or a louder voice could simply be you? They thought they could recreate your impact by finding a stand-in, a substitute, a personality that looked the part. But no matter how many they brought in, no matter how polished or flashy, something in the air refused to click. The energy stalled. The scene went flat. Why? Because what you carry cannot be mimicked. It's not your wardrobe. It's not your tone. It's not even your talent. It's your essence. That invisible, unteachable, uncopyable presence that changes the room without asking for permission. It's what 1 Peter 4:10 speaks of. Each of you should use whatever gift you have received to serve others, as faithful stewards of God's grace in its various forms. Your gift isn't just a skill, it's the grace attached to it. And grace cannot be replicated. Think of Robin Williams. Many have tried to imitate his comedic style, but no one could duplicate the soul behind it. It wasn't just the jokes, it was him. The timing, the warmth, the energy that could light up a room and break hearts all at once. Just like that. When you step away, the room can't fake your frequency, they thought. Anyone can do what you do. They even convinced themselves that if they found someone louder, trendier, or more compliant, no one would notice the difference. But the silence after you left told a different story. The sparkle disappeared. Conversations turned hollow. The momentum they were so sure they could keep alive fizzled into background noise. Isaiah 41:10 reminds you, "Fear not, for I am with you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand." The same God who anointed you is the reason your absence leaves a void no one else can fill. Look at the Beatles after they broke up. Each member was talented, but together they carried a chemistry the world still talks about. Remove one part, and the magic shifts forever. That's what they underestimated about you. You weren't just participating. You were holding the dynamic together. You were the soul of the scene, the glue that made the entire thing work. And they didn't see it at first. They were too busy moving on, trying to rewrite the script, rebrand the cast, and pretend the change was an upgrade. But every new attempt only underlined the truth. You were never replaceable. Proverbs 18:16 says, "A man's gift makes room for him and brings him before the great." Your gift didn't just make room for you, it made the room matter. Michael Jordan left the Chicago Bulls in 1993, and despite still having great players, the team lost the unshakable dominance it once had. His return reignited their championship spirit. The point? Some presences don't just contribute, they define. And you, chosen one, are that kind of presence. It's not about skill, they've found skilled people. It's not about looks, they've found attractive people. It's not about charm, they've found charismatic people. And yet, the magic is still missing, because you didn't just show up, you anchored the space. You carried weight in a way that can't be taught or faked. Like Ruth's loyalty to Naomi, your presence has always been rooted in authenticity, not opportunism. Ruth 1:16 says, "Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay." That spirit of covenant is part of what made you unshakable. Think of Steve Jobs. After he was pushed out of Apple, the company lost its innovative edge. They tried replacements. They tried new leadership. But the pulse was missing until he returned. That's exactly what happens when a true originator, a genuine spark, is removed. The machinery may keep running, but the heartbeat is gone. And now, as they scramble to keep the scene alive, the audience feels it, even if they can't put it into words. What they're feeling isn't just absence, it's the loss of a frequency, a truth, a spirit they didn't treasure when they had it. Psalm 75:6-7 reminds us, "For promotion cometh neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south. But God is the judge. He putteth down one, and setteth up another." They couldn't demote what God has promoted. Chosen one. How does it feel to know that you never had to fight for a place because you were the place? How does it feel knowing the clearest confirmation of your calling came not from applause, but from the void you left behind? Because now it's undeniable. Every time they tried to replace you, they only proved you never could be replaced. Number 6. Your silence wasn't strategy, it was divine timing. Chosen one. Do you realize how many people misread your quiet seasons? They whispered that you had fallen off. They assumed you had nothing to say. They thought your absence was proof that you were finished. But here's the truth they couldn't see. You weren't lost, you were being hidden. You weren't avoiding the spotlight. The spotlight simply wasn't ready for you. And truthfully, neither were they. Your silence wasn't some calculated PR move. It wasn't a strategy to create suspense. It was protection. It was heaven pulling you back behind the curtain because what you were carrying needed depth, not distraction. Psalm 27:14 says, "Wait for the Lord. Be strong and take heart and wait for the Lord." You weren't laying low to look mysterious. You were surviving seasons that would have broken others beyond repair, while they were posting, performing, and pushing themselves into rooms they weren't ready to hold. You were walking through fire, and it wasn't just a fire that burned, it was a fire that purified. Think of Nelson Mandela, who spent 27 years in prison, silenced in the world's eyes. Yet, in that hidden place, he was being refined into the leader who would dismantle apartheid. That's the power of divine concealment. Every betrayal, every delay, every closed door, none of it was punishment, it was preparation. Isaiah 49:2 captures it perfectly. "He made my mouth like a sharpened sword. In the shadow of his hand, he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver." Heaven was holding you back, not holding you down. God knew, if you stepped out too early, your gift would fall into the hands of people who only valued noise, not truth. Look at J.K. Rowling. Before the world knew her name, she spent years as an unemployed single mother, quietly writing in cafes. People might have thought she was wasting time, but she was building something that would eventually touch millions just like her. Your quiet years were not wasted. Years, they were sacred construction zones. They said you let your moment pass, but you weren't chasing a moment, you were waiting for the moment. The one that's aligned, undeniable, and unshakable. Ecclesiastes 3:11 says, He has made everything beautiful in its time. That kind of moment doesn't come through hustling or forcing. It comes when heaven opens the door, not when man tries to pick the lock. Think of Abraham Lincoln. Before becoming president, he faced repeated political losses, years of obscurity, and personal tragedy. But when his appointed moment came, his voice carried the weight of endurance, not ambition. That's the kind of weight you carry now. You're not just ready to be seen, you're ready to be used. You're ready to speak with a power that doesn't just echo in ears, but shakes the soul. Everything you went through, the sleepless nights, the disappointments, the seasons where it felt like no one saw you, it's all coming full circle now. The same silence they mocked is the soil your authority grew in. When you open your mouth now, it won't be filler, it won't be performance. It will be conviction, clarity, and calling all wrapped in one. Think about Maya Angelou. Her words carried such power because they were born out of lived experience, joy, pain, silence, and breakthrough. That's why people leaned in when she spoke. That's why they'll lean in when you speak. You won't need to be loud. Your authenticity will make the noise. Your silence wasn't weakness. It wasn't fear. It was obedience. Deuteronomy 31:8 reminds you, the Lord himself goes before you and will be with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Do not be afraid. Do not be discouraged. You didn't go missing. You were being marked. God was setting you apart so that when the right time came, your words wouldn't just be heard, they would be felt. Look at Malala Yousafzai, silenced by violence, hidden away to heal. And yet when her voice returned, it carried the force to move governments and inspire nations. That's the same fire in you. What comes from a soul that's been through the flames doesn't entertain it, awakens. So here's my question to you. Now that the moment has come, will you speak with the full weight of the silence that shaped you? Because, chosen one, the world is about to find out what heaven already knows. You weren't quiet because you were empty. You were quiet because God was filling you. And now, you're overflowing. Number 7, you restructure the room. Chosen one. Do you realize that when you walk into a room, you're not just arriving, you're rearranging? The energy shifts, the atmosphere tilts. Conversation change, tempo. Some people straighten their posture without knowing why, while others suddenly fumble over their words. It's not that you try to make an entrance, it's that your very existence is an entrance. And here's the truth. It's not about how loud you are, how you dress, or how much you say. You carry a frequency that speaks before your mouth opens. Psalm 89:15 says, "Blessed are those who have learned to acclaim you, who walk in the light of your presence." Lord, you walk in a light that exposes everything else, especially what isn't real. That's why fake confidence starts to crack the moment you show up. Think about Princess Diana. She didn't need to shout to draw attention. Her presence carried a mixture of grace and truth that made entire rooms shift. People felt it before they even spoke to her. That's the same energy you bring, an authenticity so rare in a world full of performance that it disrupts whatever is shallow, shaky, or false. Some will welcome it, others will resist it, and you've seen both, haven't you? There are people who sit up straighter, ready to meet you where you are. Then there are those who grow defensive, avoid eye contact, or get visibly irritated. Don't take it personally. It's not your fault. It's their alignment being exposed. John 3:20 says, "Everyone who does evil hates the light, and will not come into the light for fear that their deeds will be exposed." Your presence isn't a problem, it's a mirror. Consider Elon Musk walking into a boardroom. Whether people agree with him or not, the entire dynamic changes. Ideas get sharper, eyes get focused. The energy rearranges itself around the person carrying the greatest gravitational pull in the room. You carry that kind of pull not because of your title, but because of your alignment with truth. You're not here to bring drama, nor are you here to bring a shallow peace that pleases people, but silences your soul. You bring truth, and truth, by nature, rearranges. It shifts what is built on a lie and strengthens what is built on solid ground. That's why your presence feels like both a blessing and a challenge to others. It's the Holy Spirit in you doing the sorting. Hebrews 4:12 reminds us, "For the word of God is alive and active, sharper than any double-edged sword. It judges the thoughts and attitudes of the heart." Look at Rosa Parks. She didn't shout or demand attention. She simply refused to move from her bus seat. And that quiet presence restructured the entire civil rights conversation in America. You carry that same disruptive alignment, small movements with massive impact. You may not even notice the shifts you cause. You move how you move. Speak when it's necessary, and stay quiet when it's sacred. But every space you enter, something changes. And it's not just psychological, it's spiritual. You didn't study a charisma manual or rehearse this kind of presence. You were called to carry it. And like Martin Luther King Jr., whose speeches weren't just inspiring but spirit-charged, your words, when you choose to speak, carry weight that rearranges the inner world of those listening. They don't just hear you, they feel the shift in themselves. This isn't about ego, it's about essence. You don't try to control the room. You simply show up fully aligned with who God made you to be. And that alone causes everything false to either rise into authenticity or retreat into hiding. 2 Corinthians 2:15 says, "For we are to God the pleasing aroma of Christ among those who are being saved and those who are perishing." You carry a fragrance of truth that some embrace and others resist, but no one can ignore. So, have you accepted that this is your calling? That you were never meant to blend in, but to be the quiet, undeniable force that causes everything else to rearrange? Because, chosen one, your presence doesn't demand attention, it commands respect. And the longer you walk in alignment, the more every room you enter will begin to look like it was designed with you in mind. Number 8. Forged in the fire, chosen one. Have you noticed how easy it is for some people to talk about survival without ever having truly faced the flames? They throw around lines like, "I've seen things," or "I've survived so much." But for many, it's just noise rehearsed, pain packaged for sympathy, empty slogans meant to make them look strong. You, on the other hand, carry no rehearsals. Your survival is not a performance, it is the reason you're still breathing. Your scars aren't accessories. They're not decorative stories you bring up to win attention. They are living chapters, weighty, real, and undeniable. And that weight shows up in everything. How you walk into a room, how your voice carries without shouting, how you can see through people's masks without even trying. Galatians 6:17 says, "From now on let no one cause me trouble, for I bear on my body the marks of Jesus." Those scars tell the truth that can't be faked. While others skimmed the surface of hardship, you were broken down to the bones. Life stripped you bare. The lies fell away. The illusions shattered. The fake supporters vanished. The false identity was torn apart piece by piece. You weren't just disappointed, you were crushed, abandoned in your darkest nights, betrayed by those you poured yourself into. You didn't just lose resources, you lost pieces of yourself that you thought you couldn't live without. And yet, you got back up, not because you felt ready, not because the pain was gone, but because there was no other option but forward. Isaiah 43:2 reminds you, when you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. You walked through flames that would have consumed others and came out refined. Look at Nelson Mandela, locked in a cell for nearly 3 decades. He didn't just endure prison, he emerged from it with a moral authority and clarity that reshaped a nation. That's the kind of transformation fire brings when you allow it to work on you. The fire didn't just burn, it built. It burned off fear. It burned off the part of you that begged for approval. It burned off the old self that tolerated disrespect, betrayal, and dishonor. Like gold in a furnace, you were purified. Malachi 3:3 says, "He will sit as a refiner and purifier of silver. He will purify and refine them like gold and silver." Think of Oprah Winfrey, who survived abuse and poverty, yet emerged with a presence and depth that no amount of polish could replicate. People are drawn to her and to you, not because of the exterior, but because of the substance, the layers, the survival etched into your silence, the clarity radiating from your presence. They try to copy your light, but they never carried your storms. They mimic your strength, but they never bore your losses. They rehearse resilience while you embody it. And when life hits back, those who only pretend strength fold instantly because imitation has no roots. Think about J.R.R. Tolkien, a soldier in World War I, who saw the horrors of the battlefield and turned that fire into epic stories of courage and endurance. Or Viktor Frankl, who survived Nazi concentration camps and came out with a philosophy that has inspired millions. That's the kind of unshakable truth you carry, not theory, but proof. You've already been through the worst. That's why you don't flinch now. That's why your steps feel heavy with purpose. They were carved into the earth by walking through hell and somehow making it out holy. Psalm 66:10, -12 says, "For you, God, tested us, you refined us like silver. We went through fire and water, but you brought us to a place of abundance." Your life itself is the evidence. You don't have to defend your resilience. It's written into every move you make. And here's the truth. No performance, no facade, no empty slogan can stand next to someone forged in real fire. Number 9. You weren't trying to be seen. You were becoming something worth seeing. Chosen one. Have you realized this is the part they never understood about you? While everyone else was scrambling for the spotlight, curating an image, and crafting a version of success that looked polished but hollow, you were doing the invisible work, the kind no one claps for, the kind that doesn't trend on social media, the kind that builds a foundation instead of just a facade. You weren't desperate for attention. You were patient with your own becoming. They were chasing applause. You were chasing alignment. They were counting followers. You were counting the moments where you chose integrity over image. They wanted recognition. You wanted depth. Doesn't it make sense now why your presence feels different when you walk in? Proverbs 4:7 says, "Wisdom is the principal thing, therefore get wisdom, and with all thy getting, get understanding." You chose understanding over attention, and that choice is now setting you apart. Think about Beyoncé disappearing from the public eye to prepare for Lemonade. She didn't rush out half-finished work just to keep her name in headlines. She went quiet, refined her vision, and returned with something that carried weight and truth. That's you, not skipping the step where you had to unlearn, unpack, and unravel. Because you knew that anything built on pretense would eventually collapse. You didn't want to look successful while feeling empty. You wanted to arrive full of purpose, full of peace, full of power. That's why now, when people see you, it's not just visual recognition. They don't just notice you, they feel you. Your presence is evidence. Your story is woven into your posture. Your victories carry the echo of the valleys you had to walk through to get here. 2 Corinthians 4:17 reminds you, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." I am like Nelson Mandela, who emerged from prison not with bitterness but with vision. Your becoming has been forged in places the crowd never saw. Or like Malala Yousafzai, whose advocacy was born not in comfort but in surviving what was meant to silence her. Your strength was built in the shadows. It's clear you didn't cut corners. You didn't take shortcuts. You didn't skip the struggle. You let life strip away what wasn't real. You let the process humble you until you could stand without ego. You let pain teach you until wisdom became your reflex. And that kind of journey creates a presence that cannot be imitated. Psalm 66:10, -12 says, "For you, God, tested us. You refined us like silver. We went through fire and water. But you brought us to a place of abundance." Now we consider Steve Jobs, who returned to Apple after being ousted, not with the same mindset, but with the depth and vision that would revolutionize the company. The time away wasn't wasted. It was the becoming. You, too, weren't decorating yourself for display. You were developing yourself for destiny. Now people are starting to recognize it. Some are speechless, unable to articulate what's different about you. Some are shaken, realizing your quiet work has surpassed their noisy effort. And some are triggered because your existence challenges the culture of pretending. You became solid while they were still playing dress-up. You became real in a world addicted to filters. Like Serena Williams, whose dominance came from years of unseen discipline, you step forward now, not just with skill, but with the authority of someone who has done the work. And that's why it's not just your time, it's your turn. Isaiah 60:22 says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." Note, so here's the truth: they won't just glance at you, they will pause. They will replay the moments they overlooked you and wonder how they missed it. But the answer will always be the same. You weren't hiding, you were becoming. And now that you're here, the noise quiet, because something worth seeing just walked in. And chosen one. The world can't look away. Number 10. They thought you missed your moment, not knowing you were the moment. Chosen one. How many times have you heard it, whispered or even said to your face, "You missed your chance"? How many times have people looked at your delay, your quiet seasons, your refusal to rush, and decided for themselves that your story was over? They said you should have spoken up earlier. They said your window had closed. They said the spotlight had moved on to someone else. But here's the truth they didn't have the vision to see. You were never chasing a moment. You were the moment. You were never meant to squeeze into someone else's timeline, rushing to keep pace with their clock. Psalm 31:15 says, "My times are in your hands." Your life was never meant to run on the fear-based urgency of the crowd. You weren't designed to arrive on cue for someone else's stage. You were the cue. You are the shift that others have been waiting for without even knowing it. Look at Colonel Harlan Sanders. He was 65 when he founded KFC after decades of failed ventures. People thought his time had passed. But he wasn't late. He was perfectly aligned with his own divine timing. That's you. You were not late. You were not off track. You were simply moving to a different rhythm, a sacred one. Not rushed by fear or forced by pressure. And now that you've shown up, everything else is adjusting. Conversations feel different when you enter them. Opportunities that once bypassed you are circling back. People who once dismissed you are now pausing mid-sentence when your name comes up. Why? Because the moment was never complete without you in it. Think of Nelson Mandela. After 27 years in prison, many thought the world had moved on without him. But when he stepped into freedom, the political landscape shifted instantly, like Mandela. You didn't come to fit in, you came to reset the tone of the room. You weren't created to match the tempo of the world. You were created to set it. And that's why things feel different when you speak now. Your words don't just enter the air, they change it. Doors are opening that once slammed in your face. People are reaching out who once avoided you. That's the power of divine alignment. Isaiah 60:22 says, "When the time is right, I, the Lord, will make it happen." The time is right now, and you are the reason the timing finally makes sense. You don't need to explain where you've been. You don't need to defend your delay. Look at Vera Wang, who entered the fashion industry at 40, long after people said it was too late. She didn't arrive rushed. She arrived ready. That's your story too. The power isn't in being early. The power is in showing up prepared, solid, unshaken, and unforced. This is why you were never in competition with anyone. When God designs you to be the moment, there is no missing it. The moment will wait for you. Psalm 37:7 says, "Be still before the Lord, and wait patiently for him. Do not fret when people succeed in their ways, while others were scrambling to get there first." You were building the capacity to hold the space when it arrived. Think about J.K. Rowling. She wrote Harry Potter as a single mother on welfare, long after many would have given up on their dreams. Yet when her work was ready, it didn't just enter the publishing world, it redefined it. Your presence in this season is doing the same thing. This isn't about revenge. It's not about proving them wrong. You're not here to say, "Look at me now." You're here because purpose finally caught up to your presence. The spotlight is not just glancing your way anymore. It's settling on you. Not because you fought for it, but because you now carry something that cannot be ignored. David was tending sheep while his brothers were being paraded in front of Samuel to be anointed king. No one thought to call him, but the oil wouldn't flow for anyone else. Why? Because the moment was waiting for him. 1 Samuel 16:11 says, "Send for him. We will not sit down until he arrives." That's what's happening in your life right now. Nothing can truly start until you step into it. Think of Oprah Winfrey. She faced repeated rejection in her early career, was told she wasn't fit for television. And yet, when her moment came, she didn't just join the conversation, she became the conversation. That's your energy right now. The alignment of your preparation and God's timing is unstoppable. And here's the truth. The reason your arrival feels so disruptive is because the space you're stepping into was unconsciously holding its breath for you. Every part of your journey, the delays, the setbacks, the seasons of silence has shaped you into someone who not only takes the moment but can hold it. James 1-4 says, "Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." So, will you own the reality that you are not late, you are not behind, and you are not chasing anyone else's schedule? Will you accept that your timeline was never meant to look like theirs? Because, chosen one, you didn't miss your moment. The moment was waiting for you. And now that you are here, the noise fades, the shifting stops, and everything else makes sense. You are not walking into a scene that's already in motion. You are the signal for the real scene to begin, and the world is about to see why heaven held the door until you arrived. Number 11. They gave you the wrong script, and you still outperformed them. Chosen one. Have you ever realized that while some people were given a red carpet to walk on, you were given a road full of thorns and told to figure it out, while others had guidance, resources, connections, and applause from the start? You were handed silence, rejection, and betrayal. They got step-by-step instructions. You were thrown into scenes you never auditioned for and left to improvise without a safety net. And yet somehow you still made it work. They didn't hand you opportunity. They handed you obstacles. They didn't give you a stage. They gave you a shadow. They didn't give you applause. They gave you criticism, doubt, and rumors. But here's the thing they didn't calculate. You didn't need their script to shine. Proverbs 16:9 says, "In their hearts, humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." They may have tried to write you out, but heaven had already written you in. Think about Oprah Winfrey. She was fired from her early job as a news anchor and told she wasn't fit for television. But instead of folding, she created her own lane and became one of the most influential voices in media history. Like her, you took the broken lines they gave you and turned them into a masterpiece. They tried to reduce you to a side character, a background role in a story they controlled. They gave you a damaged storyline, expecting you to stay stuck there. But you didn't. You refused to live by a script designed to limit you. You didn't have the script. You had the source. John 15:5 says, "Apart from me you can do nothing." Because you were connected to the source, you were able to rise without their approval, funding, or blessing. Look at Sylvester Stallone. He was rejected by multiple studios, told his screenplay for Rocky wouldn't work unless someone else played the lead. He refused, even when he was broke, and eventually starred in the film himself, winning Oscars and creating a franchise. That's grit. That's the same inner fire that kept you going when the world told you to quit. You moved differently. You didn't follow their rules, you outgrew them. You spoke with conviction when everyone else was parroting each other. You trusted your timing while they chased trends like they were life rafts. You stayed grounded in chaos. That kind of stability can't be bought, copied, or coached. It's forged in nights when you had to whisper to yourself, "Don't give up," even though nobody was clapping. James Uxi, kaksitoista promises. Blessed is the one who perseveres under trial, because, having stood the test, that person will receive the crown of life. I'll think of J.K. Rowling. She was a struggling single mother, rejected by 12 publishers, but she kept going until Harry Potter changed literature forever. She didn't follow the publishing industry's rules. She built her own phenomenon. Just like you turned their limitations into your launchpad. Now, the same people who once called you disposable can't figure out how you're still rising, how you're now commanding attention, respect, and influence without begging for it. They don't realize that the very hardships designed to break you became the foundation of your power, like Joseph in Genesis 50:20. You can now say, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good, to accomplish what is now being done." Consider Howard Schultz, the man behind Starbucks. He was rejected by 217 out of 242 potential investors for his coffee shop vision. Those rejections became his training ground for persistence. In the same way, every no you faced refined your ability to stand when lesser spirits would have walked away. You didn't just memorize lines, you lived them. That's why your presence hits differently now. People can sense the reality in your voice, the authenticity in your energy. You're not rehearsing strength, you embody it. You were never supposed to be the star in their version of the story, but you were always destined to be the light in your own. And here's the part that shakes them most. They tried to script your life from a place of control, but you chose to create from truth. You stopped auditioning for their approval and started authoring your own narrative. That's why you outshine them without trying, because you didn't perform. You transformed, like Malala Yousafzai, who turned her trauma into global advocacy for education. You took what was meant to silence you and made it into your megaphone. And like her, your story isn't about revenge, it's about purpose. So, are you ready to fully embrace the fact that you never needed their script, their stage, or their applause? Are you ready to own that you have been the main character in God's story for your life all along? Isaiah 55:11 reminds us, "So is my word that goes out from my mouth. It will not return to me empty, but will accomplish what I desire." You are the living proof of that promise, chosen one. You are not a product of their approval. You are the product of your obedience, your persistence, and your connection to the one who wrote your true story before they even picked up a pen. That is why you're still standing. That is why you're still rising. And that is why the world can't ignore you now, because you didn't just survive their wrong script. You rewrote the whole play. Number 12. You're not taking the lead. You're rewriting the entire genre. Chosen one. This was never about finally getting your turn in the spotlight or waiting for the world to hand you an opportunity. This was never about fitting into their tired plot lines or proving you could be the star in someone else's story. This was always about something bigger, rewriting the narrative itself. You were never built to adapt to their format. You came to disrupt it. You came to challenge it. You came to replace it with something heavier, truer, and rooted in eternal purpose. That's why they've struggled to figure you out. They've tried to box you in, label you, and categorize you into something they could understand, but nothing stuck. You don't act like them. You don't move like them. You don't sound like them. And maybe the most confusing thing of all, you don't even want what they've been chasing. Isaiah 43:19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" You weren't sent to repeat the familiar. You were sent to be the new thing. Look at Elon Musk. Love him or hate him. He didn't enter industries just to compete, he reshaped them. Electric cars weren't supposed to dominate the market. Space exploration wasn't supposed to be private. Yet he redefined the genres he stepped into. That's your energy. You're not here to follow a path. You're here to make one. While the world expects you to mimic what already works, you refuse. You don't follow trends. You don't copy formats. You create your own. And here's what unsettles them. Most you move based on alignment, not attention. That's why conversations shift when you enter them. That's why your words linger in people's minds long after you've spoken. You're not just saying something, you're showing something. Think of Rosa Parks. She didn't start a movement by trying to dominate a conversation. She changed the meaning of the conversation itself. Her quiet defiance rewrote the rules. Like her, you carry a higher way, a path carved through fire, silence, and integrity. And that's rare. That's why it's so disruptive. While they recycled each other's moves, you were building something original from the ground up. They spent years learning how to fit in. You spent years learning how to stand alone. Psalm 40:3 says, "He put a new song in my mouth, a hymn of praise to our God. Many will see and fear the Lord and put their trust in him." You are the new song, and now that the world is starting to take notice, it's not just surprised, it's shaken. Consider Steve Jobs returning to Apple in 1997. He didn't just lead the company, he rewrote its entire identity. The products, the culture, the philosophy, all transformed. That's what happens when someone who refuses to be a copy takes the reins. And like him, you didn't show up to dominate an existing scene. You came to change the meaning of the scene itself. You do not fit their mold, and you're not supposed to. You are the mold breaker, the system disruptor, the energy shifter. That's why people study you and still can't explain you. You're not built to be understood through old language. You are speaking in a dialect heaven wrote for you, alone. Ephesians 2:10 reminds you, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared in advance for us to do." This has always been prepared for you. Look at Maya Angelou. She didn't fit the mold of what a successful writer was supposed to be at the time. Her work crossed genres, merged poetry with activism, and created a lane entirely her own. You're doing the same thing in your field. Your calling, your influence. You're building something that isn't just a story, it's a standard. And here's the part that makes it unstoppable. It's built on truth, not performance. Performance fades when the stage lights go out. But truth stands whether anyone is watching or not. That's why you can walk into any space and remain yourself, while others feel the need to shift, adjust, or put on a mask. John 8:32 says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And the truth you carry is setting others free simply by your existence. Consider Muhammad Ali. He didn't just box, he redefined what it meant to be a boxer. He fused athletic excellence with cultural influence, speaking truth unapologetically. People couldn't box him in, literally or figuratively. That's you. Your movement isn't limited to your role. It reshapes the entire arena. And now, they have no choice but to adjust. The systems, the dynamics, the conversations, they bend in your direction. Because you're not just participating in the moment, you are the shift. Like David in 1 Samuel 17, you weren't the warrior anyone expected to face Goliath. But you didn't just win the battle, you changed the battlefield forever. So, chosen one, will you keep trying to explain yourself to those who only understand imitation? Or will you keep walking in the rare air of originality? Will you keep holding the standard instead of lowering it to fit someone else's comfort zone? Because whether they approve or not, the fact remains, you're not taking the lead in their story. You're writing an entirely new genre, and history will remember it. Number 13. The show isn't starting because you're ready. It's starting because they finally are. Chosen one. Here's the truth you may have felt, but never put into words. You have been ready. For years. You've done the work when nobody was watching. You've healed in private, grown in silence, and gained clarity without the need to announce it. You've sat with truths most people run from. You've chosen integrity when shortcuts looked so tempting. You've learned how to stand alone without becoming bitter, how to rise without being arrogant, and how to carry power without losing your soul. But readiness is only half the equation. Timing, divine timing, is the other half. Ecclesiastes 3:1 To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. Your emergence was never just about you being prepared. It was also about the world being prepared for you. And that's the part people often miss. The presence you carry is rare. It can't be manipulated, bought, or controlled. It doesn't bow to trends or bend to public pressure. That kind of authenticity is dangerous to systems built on performance, pretense, and power games. And for years, they weren't ready for it. They would have tried to shrink you to fit their comfort zones, slap a label on you to make you predictable, or silence you to protect their illusions, not because you were wrong, but because your truth exposed everything they were pretending to be. Think of Nelson Mandela. His leadership didn't emerge the day he left prison. It was forged long before. But the world wasn't yet ready to hear him. When the time finally came, the stage wasn't prepared because he had changed. It was prepared because they had. That's your story. You've been ready. The show is starting now because they finally are. Back then, your voice would have been drowned out by the noise. Your integrity would have been ignored in a culture obsessed with shortcuts. Your power would have been misunderstood, mistaken for rebellion instead of redemption. But now, the world is tired, disillusioned. It's craving something real, and that craving is what created the space for your presence. Isaías 60:1 declares, Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you. Consider Maya Angelou. Her words carried weight because they came from lived experience. But imagine if she had spoken those truths in a time and place where ears were closed. Timing didn't just amplify her voice, it made it unavoidable. In the same way, your presence now lands differently because hearts are finally in a place to receive it. This isn't just a spotlight finding you. The entire atmosphere has shifted to match your frequency. Rooms feel different when you walk in. Not because you're trying to dominate, but because your authenticity recalibrates the energy. You are not here to beg for attention. You are here to deliver what the world didn't even know it needed until now. Think of Steve Jobs unveiling the first iPhone. The technology existed before, but the culture wasn't ready to embrace it. Once the timing aligned, the impact was unstoppable. Likewise, your voice, your vision, and your calling were already in you. Now the world has caught up. This is not your comeback. This is your arrival. The curtain is rising because the noise has died down. The filters are cracking. The performances are wearing thin. And in the middle of all that exhaustion, your authenticity is the only thing that still holds weight. Galatians 6:9 promise. Let us not become weary in doing good, For at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. You didn't just wait, you endured. And now the harvest is here. Look at Malala Yousafzai. She was already passionate about education before the world knew her name. But when global eyes were finally ready to hear her message, it wasn't hype that put her center stage. It was substance. The same is true for you. You didn't chase the stage. You became the standard. And now the space has no choice but to honor that. You are not at the center because of hype. You are there because you carry something that cannot be duplicated. You weren't waiting to be seen. You were waiting to be received. And there's a big difference. Being seen can be fleeting. Being received means your presence is embraced. Your words are valued, and your role is undeniable. Now the same people who once overlooked you can't stop looking. The same spaces that ignored you are now making room. The same culture that ran on imitation is craving your originality. 1 Peter 5-6 says, "Humble yourselves, therefore, under God's mighty hand, that he may lift you up in due time." This is your due time. Think of J.K. Rowling again. She wrote in obscurity for years. The stories were always in her, but the timing of their release was aligned with the readiness of the audience. In the same way, you've carried this truth, this weight, this calling, and now that you're stepping forward, it's not just the right time for you, it's the right time for them. So let me ask you, chosen one, will you step into this space without hesitation, knowing the delay was never a denial? Will you own the truth that the stage was being prepared for you, not the other way around? Because the show is starting. Not because you finally got your act together, but because the world finally realized it needed what you carry. And now that the curtain is up, there's no going back. This isn't an audition. This isn't a test run. This is the moment where purpose meets readiness, and readiness meets the right audience. And chosen one, it begins now. Number 14. You were the hidden finale in a story full of fillers. Chosen one. Have you noticed how the story before you arrived was filled with empty arcs, shallow plots, and characters who looked convincing but carried no depth? They recycled the same tired narratives, passing the spotlight from one pretender to another, thinking the real story was already unfolding. But the truth, you were the piece they didn't see coming, the final act that would make every loose thread, every meaningless scene, finally make sense. While they wasted time praising performances with no weight, you were being formed in silence. They handed out titles to people who hadn't earned anything except applause. They promoted trends over truth, style over substance. But while all that noise was filling the stage, you were not skipped. And you were certainly not forgotten. You were preserved. Isaiah 49:2 captures it perfectly. In the shadow of his hand he hid me. He made me into a polished arrow and concealed me in his quiver. Aren't you? You were not meant for the early scenes because your presence would have exposed the hollowness too soon. The story had to burn through its illusions before it could handle someone like you. Think of how the Lord of the Rings keeps Gandalf's true power hidden until the exact moment the Fellowship needs it most. That's you too, real for the opening act. The truth you carry would have collapsed the facade before the audience was ready to face it. Now that the fluff has collapsed, now that people are drained from hype and exhausted by overexposure, your arrival hits differently. It isn't theatrical, it's divine. It isn't loud, it's perfectly loud enough. Why? Because you don't need to wrestle for attention. You carry the kind of presence that settles a room simply by existing in it. Think of Mother Teresa walking into a crowded hall. She didn't need a microphone to command respect. Her quiet presence carried more authority than the loudest speeches. That's what you bring now, a conclusion, not a competition. You are not here to outshine. You are here to end what has been shallow and bring it back to what is sacred. You bring clarity where there was confusion. You bring weight where there was fluff. You bring truth where there was performance. John 8:32 says, "Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free." And truth, when it shows up, doesn't need to fight. It simply makes every lie collapse under its own weakness. Look at the life of Harriet Tubman. She didn't burst into history with fanfare. She worked in silence, freeing one group at a time, until the truth of her work became undeniable. Like her, you weren't meant to be part of the early build-up. You were saved for the chapter that matters most. The truth is, every story they told without you was incomplete. Every room you were excluded from was missing its anchor. Every main character they propped up was a placeholder for the real, and now the real has arrived. Not desperate, not loud, but undeniable. Psalm 118:22 reminds us, "The stone the builders rejected has become the cornerstone." Well, think of Stan Lee. For decades, the comic book world knew him only as a behind-the-scenes creator. It wasn't until much later that audiences began to realize the vast world he had built, and how everything they'd been enjoying was connected to his vision. That's you, the blueprint they didn't recognize until the finale revealed it. You didn't fight for the spotlight. You became the reason it exists. You didn't rehearse lines to impress anyone. You lived them, embodying them in the fire and in the silence. You didn't follow their script. You rewrote the genre. They called you late, but you were right on time, not to join their performance, but to end it. David wasn't present in the early battle scenes between Israel and Goliath. He was tending sheep while the army postured, but when he stepped onto the field, the story shifted instantly. You are walking into your battlefield moment, not as an understudy, but as the final word. And now, when you walk into a room, it's not ego that follows you, it's atmosphere. You don't compete for attention because your presence concludes the conversation. You are the truth, walking into a theater full of noise, ego, and imitation. 2 Corinthians 4:2 says, "We have renounced secret and shameful ways. We set forth the truth plainly." You are the plain truth in a sea of polished lies. You didn't just steal the show. You revealed that it was never truly a show. To begin with, it was a setup for something sacred. Think of Malala Yousafzai. The world thought the conversation about girls' education was already happening. But when she arrived on the global stage, the entire movement found its true center. Chosen one. You are the finale they never prepared for, but always needed. Step into this space, not as a performer, not as a replacement, but as the original blueprint, the one who carried the weight when no one was watching, the one who brings the room back to what matters. The curtain is rising, not for applause, but for truth. So, will you take your place, knowing this isn't just your moment, but the moment the whole story was waiting for? Because you were never here to blend in, you were here to shift the scene, and now, the stage is yours. Beloved chosen one, if you have walked with me through every part of this journey, then you already know this was never just content. This was a mirror, a map, and a divine confirmation that the very things people used to overlook in you were the exact ingredients God was using to prepare you for this hour. You've seen yourself in every scene we described, the quiet years, the misunderstood seasons, the hidden battles, the fire that burned away the old you, the moments they tried to replace you, write you out, or control your script. Yet here you are, still rising, still carrying a presence they can't replicate. This wasn't hype. It was never about hype. It was about truth. And the truth is that you are not here to simply take your turn. You are here because the room, the stage, and the narrative are incomplete without you. You are here to change the standard, shift the atmosphere, and become the living evidence that God's timing is perfect. Isaiah 60:1 says, "Arise, shine, for your light has come, and the glory of the Lord rises upon you." The waiting season was not wasted. The closed doors were not rejection. The hidden years were not punishment. They were preservation. And now the curtain is rising because it's not just your time, it's the world's time to finally see you. Everything we've uncovered together leads to one truth. You were never late. You were not catching up. The world was catching up to you. They recycled pretenders, handed out empty titles, and built hype around shallow performances. But the real finale, the one that ties every thread together and brings the whole story into focus, was you. Just like Joseph in Genesis 50:20, you can now look back and say, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done." You are not walking into the spotlight to beg for validation. You're walking in because you carry something that cannot be ignored anymore. Your authenticity is the reset button. Your story is the evidence. Your presence is the conclusion that makes all the previous chapters make sense. If something inside you stirred while hearing this, if certain lines felt like they were pulled straight from your own life, it's because this space was created for you. Your presence here is not random, it's divine alignment. You're not just an audience member, you're a co-author of this movement. That's why I'm asking you, don't just watch and disappear. Engage. Leave a comment and tell your truth, your story, your fire. Share this message with someone you know has been walking through their own hidden season. The show isn't complete until they step into their scene. When chosen ones connect, the atmosphere changes. What we build here isn't just words, it's a prophetic space where voices rise, chains break, and destinies accelerate. I want to pause and say this from the deepest part of my heart. Thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for listening with your spirit, not just your ears. Thank you for carrying your own battles into this space and allowing these words to meet you where you are. To those who have already given through, super thanks. I see you and honor you. Your generosity helps keep this message alive and reaching more people who need it. And to those who haven't, please know this. Your presence here is already a gift. Whether you choose to donate or not, I am deeply grateful that you are here. If you do feel led to contribute through super thanks, it's not about buying a blessing. It's about fueling a movement that is already blessing lives, including yours. But again, whether you give or not, you are part of this family and valued beyond measure. You didn't just stumble into this message. You were drawn here because heaven is making an announcement over you. The delay is over. The moment is now. Every part of your journey, the detours, the silence, the battles you fought in private has been building to this exact hour. Not so you could chase a spotlight, but so you could embody a light that makes every shadow retreat. You are not here to match the world's rhythm. You are here to set it. You are not here to fit their mold. You are here to break it. You are not here to perform. You are here to transform, and transformation begins the moment you stop doubting that you belong in the very space you've been prepared for. So I speak this blessing over you. May every hidden seed you planted in faith come into full bloom. May every room you enter adjust to the truth you carry. May every false voice that tried to define you fall silent in the presence of your authenticity. May your steps be ordered by the Lord, and may you have the courage to take them boldly. Deuteronomy 28:13 says, "The Lord will make you the head, not the tail." If you pay attention to the commands of the Lord your God, you will always be at the top, never at the bottom. I declare this, over your life you will rise without striving. You will lead without begging, and you will be received without explanation. You are the living proof that God's promises never expire. You are the evidence that what is preserved is more powerful than what is promoted too soon. You are the final chapter that redefines the whole book. And you are the light that makes sense of every dark page. Beloved, if this spoke to your soul, if you felt the truth in every word, then you already know this isn't something to hear and walk away from. This is something to act on. Comment below and share your story, your testimony, your breakthrough. Share this message with someone who needs to remember who they are. And if you feel led, give through super thanks to help keep this space alive for others who need to hear what you heard today. Above all, know this: whether you give, comment, or simply carry this word in your heart, I am thankful for you. You are not just a listener, you are part of this story. The curtain has lifted, the noise has faded, and what's left is you standing in the truth you've carried all along, not as a performer, not as a placeholder, but as the original blueprint heaven wrote before anyone else even picked up a pen. Welcome to the spotlight, chosen one. Now, let's shift the whole narrative together. God bless you.